Welcome to another explainer. All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into the extraordinary life of Mirabai, a 16th century mystic poet who literally defied an entire empire for her faith. We're going to unpack how a woman born into unimaginable privilege became one of the most recognizable voices of devotional spirituality in India, and, we'll see exactly how her legacy of pure rebellion and love has somehow survived for over 400 years.
So I want you to start by asking yourself, what on earth makes a queen just abandon her crown? Seriously, just imagine having incredible wealth, ultimate royal prestige, and all the political power you could ever want in medieval society, only to willingly throw it all away. I mean, why would you do that? Well, in Mirabai's case, she traded every ounce of her earthly riches for this invisible, all-consuming love. It's a totally radical choice, and to really wrap our heads around it, we've got to go back to the very beginning of her story.
Part 1. The Rajput Princess, Early Life and Privilege.
You know what's really fascinating about Mirabai? It's how few concrete dates we actually have for her. Primary records are incredibly scarce, but historians have essentially pieced together a timeline based on secondary literature. She was born around 1498 in Kutki, Rajasthan, right into a very powerful Rajput family. Then, in 1516, an arranged marriage connects her to Bhojraj, the crown prince of Mewar. But by 1521, she becomes a widow when he tragically dies from battle wounds. And she eventually passes away around 1546 in Dwarka. So we've got to ground ourselves in these verifiable historical milestones first, before we dive headfirst into the larger-than-life legends that really define her.
Part 2. Rebellion in the Palace, Defying Expectations.
Now, this right here is the central conflict of her entire life. On one hand, you have her earthly husband, Bhojraj, representing royal duty, immense wealth, strict social expectations, the whole shebang. But on the other hand, there's her divine husband, Lord Krishna. Tradition says that from childhood, Mirabai believed an idol of Krishna was her true bridegroom. So living in the royal household of Mewar, talk about immense tension. Instead of playing the part of the dutiful royal, she spent her time singing devotional songs, hanging out with saints, and worshipping Krishna. She completely, unapologetically rejected her expected worldly status for spiritual devotion.
And that tension? It escalated dramatically in 1521. After her earthly husband died, Mirabai faced the expectation of sati, a practice where a widow was, under some circumstances, expected to die on her husband's funeral pyre. Mirabai said no. She completely refused. Devotional traditions highlight this exact moment as her ultimate rejection of societal norms. She chose her spiritual devotion to Krishna over the funeral pyre. Instead of walking the path expected of a conventional Rajput widow, she essentially claimed total independence and forged her own spiritual identity.
As you can imagine, this defiance did not go over well with her in-laws at all, and this leads to some of the absolute most famous devotional legends about her persecution. Basically, hagiographical accounts, which are essentially saint biographies, tell us her in-laws tried to kill her multiple times to protect their family honor. We're talking wild stories, being handed a poisoned cup disguised as nectar, a basket hiding a deadly snake instead of flowers, and even being straight-up commanded by the new ruler to drown herself. But here's the catch. In every single story, she survives through divine intervention. The poison doesn't faze her. The snake turns into a beautiful flower garland. She even miraculously floats on water. Now, while historians definitely debate the literal truth of these events, these legends are absolutely crucial. They serve as a powerful symbol of her incredible resilience and faith while facing intense political and social persecution.
Moving on to Part 3, The Poetry of Longing, Devotion in Verse.
Okay, to really understand her poetry, we've got to grasp this core concept, Saguna Bhakti. So the Bhakti movement in India was all about emphasizing personal devotion and love for God, rather than focusing on rigid, formal religious hierarchies. Mirabai practiced Saguna Bhakti. Simply put, that means devotion to God in a personal, recognizable form. She wasn't viewing Krishna as some distant, abstract theological concept floating in the sky, not at all. She viewed him intimately, as her Lord, her absolute best friend, her protector, and above all, her beloved husband. This is exactly what made her devotion so incredibly relatable and deeply human.
And that perfectly sets up the core emotion driving all her work, virha. Virha is this intense spiritual ache. It's the profound longing experienced during separation from the divine beloved. Just think about that universal everyday ache you feel when you deeply, truly miss someone you love. like a physical pain, right? Well, Mirabai took that exact everyday human emotion and elevated it to a full-blown spiritual practice. Her longing for Krishna, this painful feeling of separation from him in her earthly life, is literally the fuel for the fire of her poetry.
I mean, just listen to the raw emotional intensity in this translated quote attributed to her. "My life, like a fish washed on shore, flails in agony. For your sake, I'll make myself a yogini." A yogini, by the way, is a female ascetic, someone who renounces the material world completely. She's literally saying her separation from God is physical agony. She's a fish out of water. And she is perfectly willing to strip away absolutely everything. All of her royal comforts, her entire past, just to find him. It's a complete, unconditional surrender.
Part 4. The Wandering Mystic, Seeking Freedom.
So, her journey out of the palace sets her on a remarkably radical path. She completely sheds that stifling royal environment in Mewar and travels to Vrindavan, which is a highly sacred region famously associated with Krishna's childhood. Out there, she fully immerses herself among ascetics and everyday devotees, truly living the life of a wandering mystic. Eventually, she settles in Dwarka, another massively important sacred city associated with Krishna over in Gujarat. She essentially trades in her physical, earthly kingdom for a boundless spiritual one.
But honestly, what's truly radical about this journey is who she chose to associate with. The legends strongly link Mirabai to Ravidas, stating she chose him as her guru. Now, Ravidas was an untouchable leather worker. Let that sink in for a second. A wealthy Rajput princess, born into the absolute highest tier of medieval society, publicly bowing down to a marginalized, lower caste saint, declaring him her spiritual master. Actually, if you go to Mirabai's temple in Chittorgarh today, there is a pavilion right out front bearing his engraved footprint. It was an incredibly controversial statement for her time. She was boldly emphasizing her deeply held belief that spiritual equality completely, 100%, transcends any social hierarchy. For Mirabai, the love of God was available to everyone, no matter where they were born.
And finally, Part 5, An Enduring Legacy, Impact and Influence.
Her earthly journey comes to a close around 1546 or 1547. And fittingly, it ends with one final, absolutely beautiful devotional legend. The story goes that while praying at the Dwarkadish temple in Dwarka, Mirabai miraculously disappeared by physically merging right into the idol of Lord Krishna. Now, of course, scholars naturally contest the historical evidence of a literal miracle, but you have to admit it serves as the absolute perfect poetic end to our lifelong spiritual romance. In the eyes of her followers, the separation was finally over. She was eternally united with her divine beloved.
But here is a crucial detail I want to point out. 150. Back in 2014, researchers noted that the 3 oldest written records mentioning Mirabai were actually written up to 150 years after she died. The actual manuscript record for her poetry from her own era is incredibly thin, practically non-existent. So you gotta wonder, how on earth did her songs survive for a century and a half before anyone even bothered to write them down?
Well, they survived because of the people, pure and simple. Composed in everyday languages like Rajasthani and Braj Bhasha, her lyrical verses, called padas, were passed down strictly through an oral tradition. Today, there are millions of devotional hymns attributed to her name, even though scholars believe only a few hundred are historically, definitively hers. But you know what? That authorship enigma doesn't diminish her legacy at all. I'd argue it amplifies it. Her songs were kept alive, passed from generation to generation, by the very people she championed, the lower caste groups, the marginalized, the everyday devotees, people who found immense, liberating power in her message of breaking societal boundaries for love.
And that right there is exactly why she still matters so much today. She isn't just some historical religious figure. She has evolved into this incredibly potent symbol of feminism and a true champion of equality. Long before it was common, she proved that a woman could claim total spiritual agency and independence. I mean, her life has inspired countless films and TV series in India, from that famous 1979 classic starring Hema Malini to modern shows in the 2000s. Her bhajans, her songs, are still sung everywhere today. Temples, classical concerts, local folk gatherings, you name it. She truly remains an enduring voice of freedom, a woman who absolutely refused to let political authority or social convention dictate her personal truth. Just look at that kind of fearless independence. She willingly gave up wealth, status, and her own safety, all to follow her deepest convictions. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this question. What societal expectations are you willing to defy for your own truth? Think about it. Thank you so much for exploring the incredible legend of Mirabai with me today. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.